In this episode, I'm going to cover Viewport, the root widget. I'll talk about programmatically sized layouts with the viewport, and then I'll be using the viewport to pass the window size to the child widget. And I'll be adding the resizable children to the layout, and then I'll talk about window resizing and how it's passed down to that widget as the child. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to go to my Eclipse IDE, and I have a basic project already created. In the previous episode, I covered this. And so what I want to do is I'll start and work this backwards, and I'll show you how to create a children. I'm not going to go into great detail on this because in the next couple episodes, I'll get into a bigger application and different layouts like vertical layout and horizontal. So let's get started, or I'm going to get started here and start with root panel, which is the body, and I'll get the body, and then I want to add a widget to the body, and I'm going to call this the viewport. VP for viewport. And then I'm going to say viewport, VP equals new viewport. And then I'm going to auto import with Shift Command O. And I'm going to select GXT viewport. That's the very root widget I want to use for my programmatic layout. Now let's look at this. I'm going to command click or control click depending on your IDE. And I want to look at this class. And you can see there's directions here, and it shows you could use a margin in this viewport. Well, this layout container that fills the browser window and monitors window resizing. And it's responsible for passing down window resizing. If I resize my window, it will send that sizing down to the children. Okay, so let's go back. I'll cover this a little bit more detail as I construct it. So I'm going to do vp.add, and I'm going to make a simple container. Okay, so what I want to do is go to the docs, and I want to show you the simple container. And I'm going to go to docs.sentra.com / and there's GXT4X. And then I'm going to go over to the left and look for UI, expand that, and then I'm looking for layout and layout containers. And I'm going to go down and I'm going to zoom in by clicking on this this image. And I want to find, okay, so there's the resize container, insert resize container, and here's the simple container. It's part of this child resized or resizable hierarchy that can be programmatically set. So I just wanted to show you that to give you more context. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to create a simple container. Okay, simple container for the variable name equals new simple container. And then I'm going to auto import Shift Command O. And I covered the key commands in the earlier episode for Eclipse, but if you're using IntelliJ, it's going to be a little bit different. So, okay, so what I want to do is give this some identification so we can debug it. So what I want to do is go simple container, I'll call the reference and say get element, which gives me the HTML element. Then I'm going to get the style, so I can get style. And that gives me the style attribute for that element. And then I want to set a property called border. And this border will allow me to see what I'm doing. So 1px solid red. And this is great for debugging. So I can remove this by simply just saying, okay, I'm going to comment that out. Okay, so now let's see what this looks like. Okay, let's load up a browser. And I've already created a shortcut in the previous episode. So it's up here, the debug as button. And I'm going to hit the shortcut for launching the super dev mode, which starts as an embedded Jetty server. And once I get that, oh, I already have a process running. So I'm going to go to the debug icon and stop the process from a previous episode that I recorded. So I'm going to stop that. Go back to Java, and that's good to see. You can see how that process works. So I'm going to go and relaunch it from the debug icon. Okay, so it's starting the super dev mode. Okay, it'll give me a link here, and I start up the browser, and it loads up my application. In this case, it's going to be super simple. Okay, you can see the red border barely because it's on the edges, but let me just resize that. And you can see the border resizes. And that's because the viewport is setting the child size or sending the simple container when it on resizes, it provides the values for width and height. So that's programmatically resized. In the future episode, I'll talk about flow layout doing 100% by 100% CSS attribute, and then the browser will resize it. But in this case, it'll go on, send an event and say on resize, and it'll resize this red border. Let's just take it one step further and try the margins here of 10 and save it, reload. And there we go, margins on the viewport. I don't know if you'd want margins on a viewport typically, but that's an option. And you can see I can resize it, and the border, or basically this simple container, resizes with the viewport. So that is the beginning of an application with programmatic sizing. It's important to note that when you do attach this, it's going to fill the entire window space. If you have other declared divs in the HTML, in fact, let's just look at that. I'm going to go over here to the web app directory, source main web app, because I have a Maven structured application here, and I'm going to look at project HTML, and I have no other divs. Well, let's say I did div something here. Okay, let's see how this affects the application. Reload. Okay, you can see, oh, I forgot. I got to reload the project because it has to copy that new resource to the web app directory. So I'm going to reload the project. Whenever I change something to HTML, I have to reload the project so to copy that new resource. Okay, so anywhere else in the project, it's going to be an incremental update. So then I can just go back to the browser. So then I could go back to the browser and then reload it. And I can see something there. Something is here. Okay, so it basically pushes down that viewport. And now you can see the sizing is now wrong in this viewport. And this is good to note because sometimes the divs, if they're positioned, will overlap. And sometimes they push down because now this is basically browser size. And let's say the viewport widget doesn't know how to account for that sizing because it doesn't know about that. So I would want to move that into a widget within the child here. And I could put a vertical layout container in this case and have this something here at the top and then another widget. So that was a great example to what happens to a viewport when another div is in the application. So in this case, let's say you want to have an application that's embedded into your full application. Let's say if you have your big enterprise app and you want to and you have a header from another department and you want to add your application here. Well, that's embedding. I'm going to cover that in a future episode. We'll go into more detail on how to provide programmatic sizing of the available layout that you want to embed your application into. Now, it's important to note, we'll call that embedding, and I'll cover that in more detail. Okay, thanks for watching today. Follow me for more tips and tricks on GXT, and I'll catch you later.